Piers Morgan had an interview with the Telegraph recently, which we're going to dissect and discuss, where he spoke in detail about Tommy Robinson, not only giving his own views on him, but also giving him credit for the things he's done, which is a massive step up for Piers, and a surprise to say the least. Whereas we normally just expect slander and defamation, he also goes over the topic of interviewing him again when he gets out. So have a watch of this and we'll discuss certain points as we go. Please feel free to give your own thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Let's get into it.
Tommy Robinson's a more complex character and a more complex argument because he's clearly at the centre of a massive raging debate, right? And my view of Tommy Robinson, I interviewed him once at Good Morning Britain. He ended up waving the Quran around, being very insulting to Islam and so on. I think that was unnecessary. I think he says a lot of things which are brazenly Islamophobic, even though they even deny that word exists. I think it does for some people. If you have a genuine hatred for a faith and you know that 1.7 billion it is support that faith and you're very insulting about it generally, then you're insulting the people that follow it, and is my view. And you can be respectful whilst making your point. He has no interest in doing that.
Respectful whilst making your point. I can't personally see how that is possible on some subjects. For instance, if you have a person sitting opposite you who believes in the marriage and consummation of a child as young as 9 years old, is it possible to make your argument to that person as to just how wrong that is while showing them respect? What if that person is a book that promotes that belief and is followed by billions of people? Again, can you argue your point while being respectful to that book? Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I'm not educated on how to do that in a professional manner. I'm just human, and my instincts would probably tell me that it can't be respected. I assume that most people feel that way. He mentions Islamophobia and then proceeds to define that as having a hatred for the faith. He also mentions that some seem to think it doesn't exist. Now, the definition of Islamophobia is having a dislike of or prejudice against Islam or Muslims, especially as a political force. Taking my earlier example of the marriage and consummation of a child as being something that is so horrifically wrong, if that is a part of Islam and you dislike that, then you dislike Islam, right? And therefore, by definition, you would be classed as Islamophobic, in which case it does exist, right? But why is that such a bad thing? As I say, I'm not educated fully or an expert on these points, which is why I'm always looking to learn and up for a discussion. And I thought I'd get your, comments. Get your comments in the comment box and tell me, am I wrong or am I just human? Because I do understand that Tommy Robinson himself says, Islamophobia is not a thing. But as I defined there, if you have a general dislike for Islam, that's Islamophobic. If you have a general dislike for the points I made, then you would seem to be Islamophobic. Now, I'm still trying to learn and understand all of this and why he believes it's not a thing. So let me know in the comments, again, your thoughts.
He's also a serial convicted criminal, who assaulted a policeman. He ran a hooligan gang. He was convictions for that. He was convicted of mortgage fraud. He was convicted of 3 contempts of court, 2 that nearly ended trials involving people in the very rape gangs he claims to be the great exposer of. And he's now in jail, nothing to do with the rape gangs, as we know as journalists, but because he committed a brazen and repeated libel of a young Syrian refugee boy who he tried to make the villain of a bullying case where he wasn't the villain, he was the victim. So there's a lot of unsavoury aspects to Tommy Robinson. However, he's been right about the rape gangs, and he has been right about that for a long time. And actually, a lot of people didn't take him that seriously when he started what he was saying about them. But if you go back and look at what he was saying, you could make a good argument that he was shouting about it is louder than most people, when, with a few honourable exceptions in the British media, most people weren't giving it the attention that they should have given it and maybe giving it now. Similarly, when Elon Musk amplifies Tommy Robinson, I don't feel comfortable with him doing that. But if he amplifies the debate about whether there should be a new national inquiry into this, I happen to think there should be. I think there are too many unanswered questions, a serial lack of accountability from all the people who were part of the cover-up, from the police to the local councils to the government and so on. And not enough people have been put in prison generally for what happened in that scandal. And the last national inquiry was just too wide-ranging. It sort of took in too many different aspects of abuse, when in fact what you need is a northern rape gang scandal inquiry, very specific to the 50 towns and villages, I think, where this was happening. And I think that should happen. So in answer to your question, Robinson's in jail now, so you can't interview him. But when he comes out, I've actually changed my view of this. I think I would interview him, and I would hold him to account over the stuff I find objectionable about him. But I would also I would concede to him that he was right about this.
Would you worry, Piers, about giving...
place.
So Piers started this section with Tommy being a serial convicted criminal, assaulted a police officer, ran a hooligan gang, mortgage fraud, 3 contempts of court, blah, blah. This is just the normal speech that we've heard many times before from anyone who doesn't like the man, including most recently Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, etc., who choose to focus more on the negatives than the positives, and to not focus on the actual good that he's done, or even give him credit for. Even though inaccurate on some points and a very good argument for most cases, including the fact that in one of the contempt cases, the trial was actually over with, and the fact that he took the hit on the mortgage fraud case as a way of protecting his family, for which there is many videos online explaining those, and also in his books, which are well worth purchasing and reading. And as for the documentary, well, it has been viewed by over 150 million people. The truth is in it, and it comes straight from the horse's mouth. Piers is obviously going to try and cover his arse, though, because he features in it, for ruining a boy's life. But moving on, and to be fair to Piers, he didn't dwell on them, choosing to move on to the positives fairly quickly, which is something that the likes of those in Reform and many others don't do, which is a big step up for Piers Morgan, and credit where credit's due. Well done for accepting what Tommy has done in regards to the grooming scandal, and accepting that he was right about that. The next part is also quite interesting, so let's play that now.
To hear the detailed way you think about
Yeah.
who you interview and how you interview, would you worry that whatever you do, it would give him a platform for his unsavoury views, of which you say there are many?
Well, this is where the argument's interesting, because like Elon Musk has 200 million followers on his own X platform. By the constant support he's giving Tommy Robinson, he's giving him a platform far beyond anything I could ever conjure up, including retweeting his film he made about the Syrian refugee boy. So you either allow this to just go out and be fueled by the most followed person on earth, Elon Musk, or you have him across a desk like this and you hold Tommy Robinson to proper account for all the things that he represents and has said, whilst also giving him credit, however distasteful it may be to give someone like that credit for anything, for the fact that on the rape gang scandal, he's been proven right, and resoundingly so. So it's complicated. You know, he's a more complicated case than some of the others. I mean, you know, someone said, would you platform Adolf Hitler? Well, you would think not. Would you platform him in 1938? Probably. Most journalists did, right? So it's like, what's the moment? What's the purpose? What are you trying to do? Not just, here's my big platform, gorge yourself on your repellent views to your heart's content. I like to think that if they do have repellent views, I'm going to hold them to account for the repellent views. But it's an interesting argument with each of these people.
I think Piers thinks he's much bigger than most people in terms of a platform and having the power to choose who he has on the show, and he's not wrong. He has a huge platform and a massive voice, and in the past I guess we can all see why he wouldn't have Tommy back on. For whatever reason, whether it's because he has a serious dislike for him and his views and doesn't want them to be broadcast to the millions of people who watch his show, or the fact that maybe he might feel embarrassed over the last interview, where all he could do was shout over Tommy and attack him because he couldn't answer a single question or have a serious debate with someone who is an expert in their field. Piers resorted to childish behaviour in that interview because he just couldn't beat Tommy in an argument over his subjects. And when you can't discuss, debate or have an answer to something, the natural reaction is to shout and attack, especially if you fear getting put in your place by somebody who very much seems to have a narcissistic personality, which I believe Piers does. Maybe Tommy is just too big to ignore now, especially with Elon Musk promoting what he's done and respecting the fact that regardless of his convictions, he's gone above and beyond what most people would dare to do in exposing the truth and fighting for justice. Those can't be overlooked, and they far outweigh any wrongs that he has done. Piers Morgan obviously highlights Elon Musk here and speaks of how big of a platform that he has and has given to Tommy. The fact that Piers now realises that he's not as big as he thinks he is, and that Elon Musk's platform and voice absolutely dwarfs his own make me wonder that it's taken this to enable him to concede and giving Tommy another interview when he gets out. I don't think that Tommy should give him the light of day, but it would be interesting. It would be an interesting interview, although a very heated interview, that's for sure. I just don't think those two could sit down and genuinely have a debate or a mature discussion without Piers going off on one and basically winding Tommy up, who would probably bite and cause Piers to start shouting and acting like a child again. Right. Now, this next part just infuriates me. Not on Piers, but the typical MSM Muppets who always resort to saying things like this.
I think that's where journalism, what you've said, Camilla, it's where journalism shows that it really matters. In some of these occasions, it is holding people to account, and the journalistic skill really matters in what we do.
Tommy Robinson is pretending to be a journalist.
Yeah, exactly.
And he isn't a journalist.
Right.
So we're the journalists who are able to say, we would hope, in the context of freedom of speech, it may be true that you have raised awareness of grooming gangs, but we might want to ask ourselves whether you would have done that if the perpetrators weren't Muslim.
Yeah, I agree.
And we might also not want to be revisionist about the fact that you were once in the BNP and you helped to found the EDL in Luton.
Would you interview him, you two?
Tommy Robinson pretending to be a journalist, which he isn't. And of course he wouldn't do what he's done if the perpetrators wasn't Muslim. You stupid, ignorant. I don't give a flying what colour or religion or faith you follow. If you are committing these disgusting crimes against children, then you're getting exposed. And Tommy Robinson would probably be at the forefront of it. I can't believe she said that. BNP, EDL, how dare she make that statement? Like, honestly, I really cannot believe that she came out with that, but it's just typical MSN bullshit. It's typical. They always do it. They have to resort to some kind of fucking evil tactic like that. So, yeah, before I say and go off on one myself, I'll leave it there. I'll leave you to make what you think of that. So, again, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And I shall see you in another video real soon.